You're listening to the main event with Zach Gelb and Chase Sr. on WHIP.
That's us, WHIP Radio here in Philadelphia. Eagles come off a big win, 31-21 down south in Houston as they take down Bill O'Brien's Texan squad. However, a lot of big injuries in that game. Nick Foles is going to be out for a while with the broken collarbone, and then D'Amico Ryans also hurts himself as well. And now joining us on the hotline is a man that is a good friend of the program. You can catch him on the NFL Network. He also won a Super Bowl championship with the New Orleans Saints, played with the Pats for a bunch of years, and that's our good buddy, Heath Evans. Heath, Zach, and Chase here in Philly. How are you?
Man, I'm good. I'm sure you guys are happy.
Well, yeah, we definitely are happy because the Eagles do get a win yesterday. And then on the collegiate front, we were calling the Temple football game, and Temple shocks a top 25 team in ECU, and they're one win away from bowl eligibility. And I'm sure you're happy as well because your Auburn squad took down Ole Miss in an exciting and an unfortunate finish because of the injury. That was a fun football game to watch, though, Saturday night.
Yeah, it was crazy, but it was definitely a nasty finish, man. I hate, even in victory, you hate to see injuries like that. It was definitely not a pretty picture there for the fans.
No question about that. Let's get to the NFL front here in Philadelphia. Foles is going to be out for a while with a broken collarbone. We saw Aaron Rodgers suffer a similar injury from a year ago. He missed 7 games before returning to the Packers. Mark Sanchez, we all know his background, got to 2 AFC championship games, but then had a bad finish in New York with the butt fumble, and eventually he made his way to Philadelphia. Chip Kelly got him in the offseason. Reaction to Foles being out for a while and Sanchez now being the man here in Philadelphia.
Well, I think it's going to test the pedigree of Chip Kelly. You know, I mean, obviously we saw Foles just explode last year. This year, I don't want to say it's been the exact opposite, but in the sense of ball control, it has. I mean, the interceptions have been a major issue. I wouldn't credit, Mark for either one of those interceptions yesterday, although they show up on the stat sheet as his responsibility. But this team as a whole still just scares me because they're pretty much doing everything backwards. I mean, they live and die by chunk plays, and I don't want to call it luck because they're consistently winning games that I would sit back and say, man, you look at the film and you look at the stat sheet and you're like, wow, they're 3 plays away from getting embarrassed, not just losing. So I don't know. I think the way Mark played yesterday, I saw him make passes I'm not sure he's ever made. So hopefully Chip Kelly can get rid of some of the stuff that we hated in New York with Mark Sanchez and bring him here to Philly and do a lot of what he did yesterday.
Those Jets teams had a lot of great defenses, but Mark Sanchez did make some big throws in playoff games up against the Pats, up against the Colts when Manning was their quarterback on the road especially. So I understand he does turn over the football a little bit, but he has shown in the past that he has been able to win in this league. But 2 weeks ago, the Eagles threw the ball 62 times to compare to running the ball was 20-something, and the number was in the mid-20s. Yesterday, it was 35 attempts through the air and 40 on the ground. I would imagine with this injury to the quarterback that the Eagles rely a little bit more on LaShawn McCoy and Darren Sproles, Heath.
Well, I mean, that's definitely what the stats would suggest. I just think you go into that game and you build this thing out on paper totally different than it played out. I mean, when Kareem Jackson and Jonathan Joseph go down, I mean, you're picking on A.J. Bowie and, Andre Howe. I mean, doggone, I mean, the poor kid, 2 touchdowns. I mean, he was just kind of eaten alive. And so you talk about no Cushing in the middle. This defense, what they went in with minute 1 wasn't the thing they came out with, about 5 minutes later. So I think the game plan significantly changed for what the Eagles were going to be able to do against this defense. The shot plays crushed Billy O'Brien's team. And then I think it allowed for the stabilization of the run game, which McCoy over the last 4 weeks has gotten better. But yesterday, I don't think we had seen that type of output really all year probably.
Heath Evans of the NFL Network joins us right now. And Heath, the Eagles in the midst of the game lose their leader and signal caller on offense. And Nick Foles, they lose their signal caller on defense and D'Amico Ryans. As a former player, you played on a lot of teams with really close and strong locker rooms. What is being said on the sidelines when you lose your leader like that?
On the sidelines during the game, not much. It's the conversations that take place now. D'Amico is leadership-wise, I'll just say this is irreplaceable. And if Chip Kelly differs with me, I know it's to be the next man up mentality, all that good stuff. With certain players, it's just not true. Gerard Mayo this year in New England, it's just not true. You don't. Yeah, you could put the next man in there, and he might be a better athlete. He might have a bigger or higher ceiling and better upside. But what you lose, football intelligence-wise, leadership-wise, it's irreplaceable this season. So I feel bad for D'Amico. I mean, he's been one of the studs in this league for a long, long time. We've had our battles on the field together, and that's just it's a huge verbal loss for this defense, and just communication as well as just an understanding of what the heck this offense across from us is trying to do. D'Amico's seen it all, and that's no longer there. And this is a defense that poor Billy Davis, man, this defense at times just can't get out of its own way.
When Chip Kelly was hired, I know you weren't extremely high on the hiring. I think your sentiment has kind of changed after the Eagles won the NFC East championship. This year, he's drawn up some magical plays. He obviously has a really bright football mind. The Eagles continue to turn the football over now. What is your position right now on the job that Chip Kelly has done in a year and change with the Birds?
Well, I think the things that have surprised me is his ability to adjust midstream. You know, a lot of coaches, college coaches, and pro coaches, to tell you the truth, get overwhelmed in the middle of 60 minutes of an NFL game. They don't see things clearly. They don't move and adjust accurately. Offensively, Chip does that extremely well. He doesn't get stuck in the middle of a game plan. He can move according to what his team is doing well, what his team is struggling at, as well as what a defense is trying to do. And that's a God-given gift that not too many head coaches have, and that's why there's such the disparity, I think, year in and year out between the coaches in this league, because very few have that ability. That being said, I mean, the jury's still out on Chip. I mean, you've got the best offensive line in football. You've got some beautiful weapons last year and this year. A head coach, the thing about this league is, I mean, there's very few people, and you've even seen Sean Payton struggle with it in the sense of, okay, you're an offensive-minded head coach. Well, what does your defense look like? At times, this defense in New Orleans has been the Achilles heel. So you're really graded as a head coach, not just on what you do offensively, but what you do special teams, which has been outstanding this year, may I add, for Philadelphia, but as well as what you do defense. And despite the talent, because of this, despite the offensive talent, and as well as some of the special teams spectacular plays this year that have really won games for you guys, this defense and red zone offense are pathetic. And I know that word is strong, but I think it's the truth, and it's got to be fixed because you take away two of the injuries yesterday just to the DBs for Houston, and I think it's a different outcome. And Houston is they're an average to good team. So I think the schedule for Philadelphia on the way out, they should be 13-3, literally 12-4 at the least, and then pray for some favorable matchups in the playoffs, because this team still has major holes that I think we glossed over because of the record. But I think we're going to see. I think Chip's really going to earn his money with Mark Sanchez, and we'll get to see just how intuitive he is with how he coaches him and how he directs the offense over the next month. Because if you throw 40 and 50 times with Mark at the helm, you're going to have 4 interceptions at the end of the game, and you'll lose the game.
So working off that, as we're talking to Heath Evans of the NFL Network, when you look at the NFC East, I know the Cowboys were without Romo yesterday, went down to a really good Arizona team. How do you think things will shape out in the NFC East? I know a lot of it depends on the injury, the severity of the injury with Tony Romo, but do you think the Eagles are the class of the NFC East right now?
I do. I mean, I'm not a believer in what Dallas is selling either. I mean, anytime that you can keep your defense on the field for 20 minutes, you should have the record that they have. And the games that they can't stay true to their formula of winning, they get beat. Arizona was a team, yesterday, obviously, that everyone said, oh, no, this is fool's gold, this is fool's gold. Arizona's a team that's built so soundly on both sides of the ball. That's the way they've been able to withstand all the injuries. And so you look at a team that can take away your run, Dallas can't beat. And so DeMarco yesterday ended up with 78, 79 yards or whatever it was, right around Arizona's average. They were giving up, I think, about 75 yards a game rushing going in, and they held the best rushing team in football to just that. They just stayed true to their average, and so Dallas couldn't break the code there. It wouldn't have been any different with Tony, and that's just the truth. I mean, what the DBs, Pat Peterson played his best game he had played all year, and Cromartie, what Todd Bowles has in that defense out there is special, and and that defense, all in all, would give this Philly offense fits. And I know you guys might not want to hear it, but people keep doubting this Cards team. I was on them all off season.
They're for real.
And they play football the championship way. It's physical for 53 men, and they hunt you down and they want to beat you for 60 minutes, and it's fun to watch.
I really do like the job that Bruce Arians has done, and he's been on this show before. And you mentioned Todd Bowles, the way that he was kicked out of Philadelphia. I don't think he was really given a fair shot here, and I don't blame the Eagles for getting rid of him. But that job that Bruce Arians and Todd Bowles have done, you saw what Arians did 3 years ago when he took over for Chuck Pagano as he was battling some unfortunate cancer. He won Coach of the Year. Then he comes into Arizona, gets 10 wins, and then this year they're already at 7-1. I just really can't stress enough the brilliant mind of Bruce Arians, Heath.
Well, and just really the ability to coach 53 different men and all the different things that he's changed, even the aspect of taking less money so he can pay more coaches. His coaching staff is double the size of any coaching staff in the league because he basically runs 2 practices every day. He has all his young guys on a separate field that otherwise would be sitting on a knee behind a play just watching. They're over there with a different set of coaches running the same plays the starters are running on the separate field. And so he has a whole bunch of hungry players. I mean, you talk about Darrell Washington, one of the best athletic, underrated linebackers in the league. You lose him for the year. Our big D lineman Dockett, they lose him, who's one of the best in his position in the year. You win multiple games without your starting quarterback. Constant injuries on both sides of the ball, and they're sitting here, with the best record in the NFL, and they haven't had a light schedule either. So they've taken anyone that they line up, and they're knocking them down as they come. But Philly is definitely the class of this division. I don't think that their problems are problems that can't be fixed. They just need to be fixed because the turnovers, good teams, they'll cost you a game every time. And then, red zone offense, I wish I could put my finger on what it is. It really comes down to play design in the red zone for this offense and then the quarterback executing at a high level as well as the offensive line, and they just don't do it. And when you play a Brady, a Manning, some of these elite teams, especially the good teams with elite quarterbacks, you will lose those games. You turn the ball over once versus the great quarterbacks, you lose much less 2 or 3 times in a given game.
You mentioned Brady and Manning. That was the main course yesterday as we're talking to our guest, Heath Evans, Super Bowl champion with the New Orleans Saints, now a phenomenal NFL analyst on the NFL Network. Brady and Manning, Bill Belichick, each and every time he goes up against Peyton Manning, he comes up with a game plan that usually does work. Manning looked very confused out there at times. He didn't look like the same offense that they've had all throughout the year. What did you notice BB do against Manning yesterday to limit their offensive numbers?
Well, constant mix and match on the defensive side. I mean, Revis, everyone was like, how do you beat Seattle? I think, Bill kind of knew how they played football is a tough way to win a championship. I mean, they could run, they could beat you on defense, they could beat you on special teams. It's the way you want to build your team, but because of salary cap structure and everything else, it's hard to build a team the way Pete Carroll was able to build his. That being said, Bill just wanted to have a chance to win that Lombardi, so you're beating Peyton and what John Elway had put together. So you sign Revis, you sign Browner, and you're starting to see, Brandon hit his stride. Everyone keeps knocking on Revis because it's quiet, but the opportunities, Revis gets to make true plays with the scheme that Bill and Matt Patricia are calling on that given defensive play are few and far between. And Revis is playing outstanding football. Brandon's going to just continue to knock the rust off. And when you can eliminate targets, even for Peyton Manning, and as great as that offensive line is there in Denver, you can frustrate an offense, and that's what they were able to do. The special teams play, as you guys all well know, there in Philly by Edelman, the punt return changed the game. I mean, it swung the momentum in such a way where it put Peyton in a chase mode. And I don't think Peyton is ever great in a chase mode. I think he likes to be the top dog. He likes to be the front leader, and he is great at that. I've always thought there was a little missing piece of his armor mentally, either when he's hit, when there's pressure, or when he's trailing. And yesterday they got behind fast, and it was over. And so that was the AFC championship matchup there, barring catastrophe in the injury department for either team, and we've got some great, exciting football left over.
The secondary with Revis and Brown reminds me a lot of what we saw in 01 and 03 with the physicality of those cornerbacks. However, let's get to the offensive side of the ball for the Pats. Brady, they were getting killed. People were wondering, and it's so ridiculous. Every time the Pats lose a game, everyone says, oh, is this the end of the dynasty and all that nonsense. They lose to Kansas City, and then after that, they've just been lights out offensively. They've improved that offensive line. It looks like the only thing that could stop Rob Gronkowski is injuries. He's the best tight end in football, and I don't think we've ever seen a quarterback in the game that is as intense and is determined to winning as Tom Brady is. What adjustments have they made since the Kansas City game? Because they look like a completely different team on the offensive side of the ball with a big-time emphasis of putting points on the board.
Well, I mean, they got an O-line healthy, for one. I mean, you go into that Kansas City game down 3 offensive line starters. Ask Chip Kelly how that looks. And, again, it's just different, and that's where great coaches make their mark. And so they take a beating in front of the world, and everyone starts, their rant and their raves because, well, who knows why, honestly. I mean, it was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard. Willie McGinnis and I were sitting on stage for the Wednesday Total Access after the Kansas City game going, like, are you people
I was
serious?
laughing.
I mean, this is a decade and a half of consistent work where this team has basically been unbeatable. And, we're talking about one game, and so the truth is, I mean, when you have Solder and Vollmer, your 2 tackles, playing the way they should, which I would be the first one to tell you, and Bill would echo the same sentiments, that early in the season, neither tackle was playing good football. They were sloppy technique-wise, they were sloppy mentally, and they just weren't getting it done. They seem to have fixed that. Dan Conley and Ryan Wendell, Ryan actually started at center last year. Those are your 2 guards now. They were both in and out of the lineup with injuries. You had a rookie, Brian Stork, at center, who wasn't day one penciled in as your center. You had Josh Stein and Marcus Cannon in and out of the lineup. This offensive line was a mess for the first 5-6 weeks of the season, and they've still been shuffling it some here unnoticed to the national media in the last couple weeks. But when you stabilize protection, when you run the ball at will, like they've shown the ability to do at times, and Karams, of course, is healthy, and then Brandon LaFell, another wide receiver that everyone asks, what the heck is Bill Belichick doing? People love to hate on the few misses that Belichick has, but always refuse to praise the no-name players that he turns into household names. And Brady and Bill have turned Brandon LaFell into another one with his size and speed. Don't be surprised by the end of the year if he's not this true number 1 guy. And Edelman is still, Minitron. So we'll see how it shakes out. But with Rob Gronkowski healthy, what he does to a defense, you have no answers.
Heath, before we let you run, I got to get your thoughts on Ben Roethlisberger. He now has 12 touchdowns in 2 games, and it seems as though every time people debate about who's the best quarterback in the NFL and who's top tier to middle tier, it seems like a lot of those conversations leave Ben Roethlisberger out, but he has been exceptional in these past 2 games, Heath.
Wow, I mean, spectacular.
Yeah.
Talk about 12 touchdowns in 2 weeks. I mean, I don't think, I have to check, I'm not the biggest stats guy in the world. Stats lie to you too much, but
right.
I don't think Brady or Manning have ever done that, and I don't think Dan Marino ever did it. I'm not sure if any of the greats have ever done that. But Big Ben, his highs and lows are almost what you love and hate about him.
Yeah.
This guy is one of the best. It's just the consistency factor has always kind of kept him off of those lists and off the minds of the analysts that are debating the subject matter. And so I think, what they have started to do this year, what they ended the year last year doing, is something special, and that is a winning football, and you see how the offense and defense are almost connected at the hip. When the offense isn't turning the ball over, when they're stabilizing drives, how much better does Dick LeBeau's defense look? And that was the story of the Pittsburgh Steelers for years, is that offensively they would wear you out, and defensively they'd wear you out, but as one fell, the other fell. And so you see the dynamic of team football probably more importantly with Pittsburgh Steelers than any other team. And so this team is dangerous. I'm just not willing to say this is one of the elite teams in the league this year just quite yet, because I want to see Todd Haley and Big Ben continue to put these winning efforts offensively together before we start crowning them. But what they did to Baltimore last night in a physical, black and blue, all bruised up matchup was fun to watch, and it was great football.
I'm in a perfect situation because I have Big Ben and Tom Brady both on my fantasy team, so the points have been coming the last few weeks, Heath.
Yeah, well, there's no excuse for you to lose then.
No, there isn't. I have people texting me actually during this interview. Can you trade me Big Ben? We all know you're not sitting Brady, but this was a whole lot of fun today, Heath. It always is each and every time we talk to you. We appreciate a few minutes today. Thanks so much and enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, you too, buddy. Anytime.
All right, there's Heath Evans from the NFL Network, one of my favorite guests of all time. Always such a good guy when he comes on with us. Okay, time in the studio is 11:38. What we'll do right now is we'll take a quick break, and when we get back, we got to do some more Eagles, tie up the Temple big win up against ECU. Zach Gelb and Chase Sr. here with you. We'll be back.